Hi, this is Rebecca with RLDesigns. Today we're going to talk about how to make a very beautiful seam in your sewing. So we're going to start with two pieces of material. We have the printed side here. This is going to be the top of our project. We'll pretend like we're making a pillow or something just to make the seam. So you can tell that this is the front of the material and that's the back of the material. So when you're making a seam, you're going to put your two pieces of fabric together so that the right sides, the correct sides, are together. So we would line them up like this, and this would be so that the back sides are showing. Now, with something this small, you're not going to need to pin it, but I'd like to just address pinning because in a lot of projects you will want to pin, especially when you're beginning. So the way that we'll just put our pins in is we're just going to put it, we're going to be sewing along this edge. So we'll just put the pins in here like this. I like to have the pins facing this direction, and the reason that I do that is because when I'm sewing, then as I'm at the machine here and it's going through, I can just pull my pins out as I go, like that. So for something this small, we can just use two pins. And so I would take one more pin and put them just about that far apart. So if you were going to sew something larger, then you would want to have pins probably 3 to 4 inches apart along the whole length of the project to keep it together. So now that we have our two pieces of material, the right sides together, we'll go ahead and turn our machine on. And we've already checked up here to make sure that our standard setting is up here. And we're going to have a length, a stitch length of about 2.5. 2.5 to 3 is a typical length. So let's go ahead and we're going to use our guide. And just as we talked about in the video of sewing a straight line, we're going to do the same thing here, only we're going to actually look at the seam when we're finished. So let's lower our presser foot, and we're going, just as we did with the straight line sewing, we're going to back stitch at the beginning. So we're going to make a couple of stitches, and then we're going to back stitch just a couple. That locks it in. Now we're going to sew until we get to this first pin, and we will take our pin out. Some people sew over the top of their pin. That may seem easier, but you could break needles and you could jam your machine, so you really don't want to do that. So let's continue on just sewing a straight line. We have a little bit gathered back here. Sometimes that happens. You just have to pull the thread out here, so that's nice. You always make sure your needle is down when you do that. We'll keep going, straight line, and we're following along here until we get to the next pin, and we'll take that out. Now I'm going to actually go ahead and sew a pivot like we talked about in our last video, where you keep your needle down. Some machines the needle will stay automatically up, but you want to put it down. Then you lift your presser foot, pivot your material, and then put your presser foot down again and then sew along. We're not going to make a rectangle this time, but we will just make that little corner because I would like to show you. Alright, so once we've reached our end of where we're going to go, we're going to back stitch it one more time, and then go forward a couple stitches to lock it in. Raise our needle, and let me show you what I've done. So I'm going to trim off either with scissors, or my machine has a thread cutter on the side. So we've sewn along straight here, and then we've gone down. Now, if we open this up, there's our nice seam. However, we have a corner. So what we do with a corner, to reduce the bulk and to make it so that the corner looks really nice on the other side, we're going to actually trim it. And I just like to do a nice angle. And you'll see there that I didn't quite hit where the top of it hits. If you actually cut it, sometimes if you get too close, you'll cut the stitches that you just made. So you don't want to cut the stitches. And now that we've cut that off, we can turn it inside out. So we'll just turn it like this, and you can poke that corner through, and then we can look at our seam and look at what we've done. Now, some people have a corner tool. I like to just take my scissors and just poke it through to make sure that we have a nice sharp corner there. But here you can see, if I'll just pull it apart right here, you can see the nice seam that this is made. So now, because it was originally, it was the correct sides together, when we turn it out, now it is the wrong sides together and your seam is perfectly straight and it looks very nice. So you will use this this tip that we have been learning, excuse me. You will learn this and use it in every single project that you do. A good first project to begin with would be a pillow. So to make a pillow, let's just talk about it really quickly. You would do the same thing that we just did. Where we sew across, we're going to make a rectangle. So we have our two pieces of material, right sides together, sew in a rectangle all the way down. And when you get to the last side, you're going to leave an opening of maybe about 3 inches or so. Then you sew along, and when you turn it, then you would turn it through the opening. So before you would turn it, you would cut all of the seams, all of the corners off, like this, just like we did with this one. Using the hole you left, you would turn the entire project inside out, and at that point, you would have a little pillow. And you could stuff it with some batting and then quickly sew up the edge, and that's a very good first project. If you've liked this video and would like to learn more about the basics of sewing, make sure and subscribe to this YouTube channel and leave a comment below. Thank you.